Meanwhile, pressure is building on British Prime Minister Keir Starmer as he fights to keep his job. The Premier is pushing back on calls for his resignation after an official he appointed was mentioned in the Epstein files. Now he faces added pressure over another recent Labour Party appointee who was not mentioned in the Epstein files. Joining now to discuss the struggle for power is Sir James Cleverly, a Conservative member of Parliament in the House of Commons, currently a visiting fellow at the University of Southern California Schwarzenegger Institute here in LA. Welcome to The Story Is. Thank you so much for being with us, our first sir. Talk to us about what's going on with Keir Starmer. Should Keir Starmer resign?
Well, his position is becoming increasingly untenable. He's losing a lot of support amongst the British people for a whole load of reasons, including a mishandling of the economy. But his judgment is now being really called into question. He appointed Lord Mandelson to be the UK ambassador to Washington, even though it was known at the time of the appointment that Mandelson had had a long-standing friendship with Epstein. And just in the last couple of days, we found out he appointed a former member of his staff to the House of Lords, even though it was known that that person had a long-standing friendship with someone who had been arrested and convicted of having child sexual images in their possession. So there are real question marks over his judgment now.
Do you think that Keir Starmer should resign?
I think he should. I think he should because ultimately, as a prime minister, your main job is to make tough decisions. Mm-hmm. And what we've seen now publicly is that he has clearly put personal friendships ahead of his good judgment. And if he's doing it in these areas that we can see, we can only assume that he's also doing it in areas that we don't see, and that puts a question mark over his credibility.
What's going on privately right now behind the scenes in Parliament in terms of his future? And do you think that Keir Starmer has the votes to survive this?
Well, it's interesting, over the weekend, the leader of the Labour Party in Scotland, and Scotland has traditionally been a part of the UK which has voted Labour more than other political parties, basically called upon Keir Starmer to resign, someone from his own party. Then there was some radio silence for a couple of hours, and then one after another, his cabinet came out to support him online in what was obviously an orchestrated display of support. That's kept him safe for the time being. But we have local elections in May, the closest in the UK that we get to midterms. Labour will almost certainly do badly in those elections. Mm-hmm. And I think a number of the people who are looking to take over want him to carry the can for that bad election result before they pounce in the spring. If I was a betting man, that's what I'd put my money on.
Essentially, you know you're going to lose anyways. Let him be the fall guy because he's damaged goods.
Why would you want to step in just before a bad election result when you could step in just after a bad election result and blame it on the previous guy?
And be the savior. So in terms of the way that this is all going down here in the U.S., what do you make of that hearing we just saw with Pam Bondi? For so long, we at the United States have looked at the British Parliament and seen people going back and forth and thought, wow, that's an interesting thing. Our Congress is so much more, quote unquote, civilized than that. And when you look at these scenes, this is more intense than what you guys do, right?
Yeah, well, everything about the British Parliament is geared up for a very confrontational style of politics. We sit opposite each other, and it doesn't always come across on the TV, but we are really very close, and it can get very, very noisy. That said, I don't think I've ever seen a political exchange as heated and as aggressive and as shouty as that hearing. I mean, I was watching, I didn't watch all of it, I watched the highlights, and even as a Brit, wow, I'm finding it quite difficult to watch.
What is the U.S.-UK relationship like right now with President Trump? And what do members of Parliament say about President Trump privately?
Well, look, what we recognize is President Trump is a fundamentally different style of U.S. president than what we're used to. The U.S. has always been a very predictable ally. It's always been, it currently is, and I have no doubt will continue to be, an incredibly important ally. President Trump, we find unpredictable, and no one in politics likes unpredictability. There are times when he says and does things, and we are desperate to cheer him on. and there are times when he says and does things, and we put our head in our hands, and that's uncomfortable. That said, the US is one of, if not the most important ally, trading partner, diplomatic partner that the UK has got. That's not going to change, irrespective of who's in the White House. But a little bit of calm is always welcome.
Very interesting. And just real quickly, you are teaching right now at the USC Schwarzenegger Institute at USC, dealing with young people. What do you tell young people to give them hope about this moment in politics when so many things seem so chaotic?
Yeah, look, I'm old enough, and I've got a few grey hairs in the beard and a few more grey hairs on my head, to remind the young people that I speak to that as turbulent and difficult as the world seems at the moment, there have been difficult times in the past. I was at the Reagan Library not that long ago, being reminded of how scary the Cold War was. My father's generation dealt with the Cuban Missile Crisis, as did Americans of that era. So there are turbulent times, there always are, but things get better. And there's plenty to be hopeful of, but you've got to work at these things. Nothing comes easy, nothing of value comes easy. And so I try to be optimistic, I try to be a bit of a Reaganite. But doing the research that I'm doing on housing and the built environment, which I'm going to take back to the UK for the job that I'm doing in the UK, that is really important. And giving people optimism and hope, I think, is ultimately the job of politicians.
Yes, indeed. We need more people to have that philosophy. Sir James Cleverly, thanks so much for coming in. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
That was great. The U.S. House has